Well, I hope everybody's doing okay. We're all somewhat quarantined for the next couple of weeks, it looks like. And listen, it may go longer than that. We don't know. So, I'll make a video tonight. I don't know how long I'll go today. I want to try to figure out the material. There's no class interaction, but I'm not going to just go straight for 55 minutes. So, we'll probably just knock it down a little bit just to, make it more palatable and so on. Now, we left off last time talking about cars. Now, let's just recall and repetition aids learning and all that. So, I just want to repeat myself. Um, at this particular stage in your life, we're trying to do three things, if you will. We want an emergency fund of about $500. We want to get through college without any school debt. And we'd like to have a car that's paid for when we get out of college. So when we get out of college, there is no debt. We don't owe anybody anything. We got a car to drive. We're ready to start our first job, and we have no debts, no bills hanging over our head outside, the typical things, maybe like our insurance bill on the car and also our cell phone bill. Okay, so that's where we're at. So we're going to pick up today in your notebook. We wrapped up on page 84. And so what I'll do, I'll work through a page and then I will repeat the blanks at the end of the page just in case you missed one. But we're going to talk for the next few moments on buying a house. Now, the myth on page 85 is that if I take out a 30-year mortgage and I'll pay extra on it, right? And that's what we all say. I mean, we do this all the time. Well, we've talked about the 90 days same as cash. Hey, I'll buy it today. I know I'll pay it off in 90 days. And yet 88% of people who do that never pay it off in 90 days. And they get stuck with interest that goes back to day one. So I mean, it's great. It's nice to have these noble ideas that I'm going to pay off this 30-year mortgage in 20 years. I'm going to pay extra principal every month. But see, life begins to happen, and then that 30-year mortgage remains a 30-year mortgage. And a 30-year mortgage, the interest is what you're paying out the first several years. It's almost all interest. You're not reducing the principal at all. So let's talk a little bit about buying a house. And, we want to encourage you when it comes time to buy a house. And I know we're talking about this years before you're going to buy your first house, but you never know. I bought my first house when I was 21 years old. What if you buy yours when you're 21 years old? You're not that far away. So what we want you to do is not think about a 30-year loan. Think about a 15-year loan. Maybe you have to get a less expensive house, but the goal is not to buy a house that you really can't afford, and you don't want to be strapped month after month after month. So the ideal way, obviously, if you could pay cash. Now, before you tune me out here, it's not unheard of that people in your particular situation get out of college, they have no debt, and they're able to save $15,000, $25,000 a year. Remember, they don't have any payments. So they're putting it all into a fund because they're going to buy a house one day. And it may be when you're 28 or 29, you're like, well, I can't pay cash, but I could put down $100,000 on a $200,000 house or a condo. Okay, well, maybe at that particular time in your life, because we don't think it's a bad thing to have a mortgage. So I would never say you have to pay cash for your house. But once again, be a great way to go, wouldn't it? To never have a mortgage payment. Can you imagine going through life, you never have a mortgage payment? Now, I know you're paying rent somewhere probably because you're saving up money. I get all that. And no car payments in your life. I mean, it'd be incredible. No credit card bills. Incredible. And if you look at the bottom of page 85, it just gives you an idea of how much you could save. In this particular example, we're talking almost $150,000. That sounds like a lot of money right now, does it? $150,000? Trust me, it's a lot of money. Okay, you'd love to be able to put your hands on $150,000. Oh, you could. if you bought this house with a 15-year mortgage versus your neighbor who got a 30-year mortgage. Huh? So, once again, it's just one of the better ways to go. Now, when it comes time to buy a house on page 86, a lot of times people rush to buy a house. They think, okay, it's time. I'm 25. I should buy a house. Well, I know it's kind of like the American dream, own my own home, but there's a lot of expenses that come with the house. Let's say you buy a house and you're in it for 2 years and the heating and air conditioning goes out. Well, I don't know. It could be a $5,000 expense. It could be a $10,000 expense. You're like, oh man, this house is just sucking out all my money. Oh, the roof, 5 years later, the roof needs done. I need new shingles. That's another $12,000. I mean, it doesn't. This is like a money pit. Well, once again, when you buy a house, a lot of things to look for. I know you're going to get an inspection done, but it's not unheard of to buy a house and have to put money into it right away. So there's a little more to buying a house than simply going to buy a house. Now, first of all, the ideal is to put down 20%. I wouldn't want to buy a house putting anything less down, but I know some people do. I think you want to also make sure you're getting a 15-year fixed rate. And we don't know what mortgage rates are. Right now, you can get a 15-year mortgage in the 3% range, a little higher than that. Although the markets are a little crazy right now as I record this because of the virus and a lot of things. We don't know what will happen a year from now. I don't think interest rates are going to go up much in the next 12 months. But be that as it may, that's really not the scope of where we're at right now. And we want to keep our house payments at or below 25% of our take-home pay. So if we're taking home $2,000 a month, we only want a $500 house payment. Now, I know that's low, $2,000 a month. That's like $24,000 a year. But if you're average, we'll say the average income, and one day you get out and you take a job and you're making $50,000 a year and you're bringing home roughly $4,000 a month. We're only looking at $1,000 a month house payment. You say, wow, I can't buy much of a house for that. Well, once again, we're just trying to be financially prudent and make wise decisions. And, you start stretching it and you say, well, I can handle an $1,800 a month. Things get a little tight. And then what happens, you get down the road and people say, well, I'll take out a home equity loan. Yeah, to catch up a little bit. No, we're trying to stay away from any debt outside the mortgage. So, once again, if you were to get a mortgage and it went for 30 years, once again, you're going to pay a lot of interest in the first 10 years. And it's going to be a shock when let's say you live there 10 years. And let's say you bought a $200,000 house. And 10 years later, you want to sell it. And, let's say it's gone up and now let's just worth $250,000. And then you look out and you think, okay, what's the balance? And wow, I didn't pay hardly of the principal now. But now if you had a 15-year mortgage, you probably owe like $50,000. And so it's almost all going to go into your pocket, all right, for your next house. So you need to just kind of keep that in mind. And maybe next time I'll get my chalkboard. Maybe I could draw a few things up, hold it up to the camera. Maybe you can see some things. We'll see how everything plays out. I might go back and redo a few things where I could draw some stuff up. But let's just see how things play out this week, maybe next week. And then if I can always go back, because once again, repetition aids learning. So if I say it twice, it's not that big of a deal. All right. All right. So let's move on to page 87. Let's talk a little bit about credit cards. I know people say, oh, I need a credit card to rent a car. Actually, you don't. You don't need a credit card to rent a car. You can rent a car with a debit card. In fact, is it dollar car rental? I forget right now. And in fact, if you turn on a Dave Ramsey podcast, he will start it off with, I believe it's Dollar Car Rental, and they basically built his studio or whatever just so they would get that plug from every time. And they know that Dave Ramsey, all of his 1,000 workers, none of them have credit cards. They all use debit cards. Many of them travel for the organization. They do it with debit cards. You don't need a credit card. I use debit cards for everything right now. I don't need a credit card. So anyway, so you can do everything you can do with a debit card. Now you take a debit card, you run it as a credit card. Don't run it as a debit card. Run it as credit. Now here's the one thing you can't do with a debit card. You can't take on credit card debt because it's going to come out of your checking account. How cool is that? All right, so you use it, you have to have the money in the bank. Otherwise, it's kind of like writing a bad check. Now, you don't want to write a bad check if the money's not in the account. When my parents first got married, I think they took a trip to Florida. It doesn't really matter. My mom, she didn't know anything about money. She doesn't know much today, but she knew very little back then. And she just thought she could write a check for anything. And the money would just be there in the account. It was just, how cool would that be? You just go out and write a check. We could go get anything we wanted. Well, she did. When they got home, I mean, checks had bounced everywhere like a bunch of bouncing balls. You can't do that with a debit card. Now, they might charge you a $35 fee if you overdraft, but they don't let you do so much, and then it's just not going to go through. So you really can't go into debt, right? All right. Now, if you're 20 years old, you can rent a car from Dollar Car Rental with your debit card. Now, I know you're not thinking about that right now, but at least you used to be, you had to be 25 to rent a car. Nowadays, you can go to Dollar Car Rental, and there is a way, and I'll look up the information, and if you sign up like through Dave Ramsey and all that, then you're in, and then you're good to go. All right, but if you're a sophomore in college, you turn 20, you can rent a car. You're good to go. All right, well, there's another myth out there that says, well, if I pay my credit card off every month with no annual payment or fee, I get brownie points. Hey, I might even get air miles and a free hat. I did that one time. I was at the ACC tournament, and my buddy and I, we're down there just having fun, and we're walking by all the booths in this one, and I don't know, let's say it's Bank America. They got there and all these ACC hats. Hey, sign up for the credit card, you can get a free hat. So we did. Now, I don't have that card today anymore. In fact, I don't even know what happened to the hat, but see, we're suckers for that stuff. We just sign up. Of course, I had to close the account eventually. I mean, it's crazy. I didn't need a credit card, but we fall for all that stuff. Everyone says, well, I get my free air miles. Well, once again, we've talked a little bit about this. We're trying to reach the $1 million status down the road. And last time I checked, that wasn't on the list of millionaire habits, was to collect air miles or brownie points or hats. So I don't think we want to go that route. And listen, I know that for every 100 people out there, there are 2 or 3 people very, very good, methodical. They get that credit card, they get their air miles, and I mean, they pay that thing off religiously. I know, no harm, no foul, not a big deal, but I want you to keep in mind, not all of us are wired that way, and you might be, but how close do you want to get to the edge of the road? I don't know if any of you, I know some of y'all have traveled around. How many of you have been to Pikes Peak? You go up Pikes Peak, and I mean, it's like there's no guardrail once you get up. In other words, if you run off the side, bye-bye. And it's kind of nerve-wracking. Well, you really don't want to run right on the edge. Yeah, you're a good driver. I get that. But you want to stay way as far as you can from the edge. So why not just stay far away from all that stuff? Why mess with it? There's just no reason to mess with it. I don't care how good you are with finances. I mean, once again, I don't think it's on the short list of millionaire habits. Oh, get that credit card, collect those air miles. I don't think that's really out there. So why do it? Why do it? All right. Now, when you use cash instead of plastic, and these are just from studies, you will spend 12 to 18% less because spending cash hurts. I mean, I hate to say it, but you get emotionally attached to your money. Now, this happens. I've seen, okay, let's say you went out and bought Apple stock right now. I mean, it's down below $250 a share. And it's been up to over 300. You're like, wow, it's a good buy. So you go out and you say, oh, I'm just going to buy one share because that's all I got. So you go out and buy a share of Apple stock. I'll bet you tomorrow you check the stock price. I'll bet the next day after that you check the stock price because your heart follows your money.